welcome back to another episode of the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Policki. He's Jacob Liberta, and we're a Minnesota sports podcast. So please hit that subscribe button if you have not done so already. If you're a Minnesota sports fan, and smash the like button on this video because holy smokes, were the Wild active at the trade deadline. Obviously, the headliner trading for Marc-Andre Fleury, which was kind of the big rumor all along, especially for the last month or so, as the goaltending really declined with the Wild between both Kaapo Kähkönen and Cam Talbot. And they pull it off here. They trade a conditional second-round pick. It becomes a first-round pick as long as we get to the Western Conference Finals, and Marc-Andre Fleury wins 4 of those games that get us there. So, I mean, overall, I'm pretty excited about this. It's definitely more of a win-now move, clearly. I mean, he's a rental player, right? As of now, there's a potential we can maybe try to re-sign him in the offseason, but basically bringing in a steady Hall of Fame level goalie. I mean, he's 37 years old, but he won the Vezina last year with Las Vegas. Not having the best year in Chicago, but that's a horrible team that's playing in front of him. So what are your thoughts here on just getting a solidified starting goaltender in here and finishing it out with him and Cam Talbot as Kähkönen got traded away as well this afternoon?
Yeah, it's just another big name coming to the city lately. This is great. I mean, this is a bona fide Stanley Cup level goalie, so that's really all you can ask for. He obviously has the track record to back up being the former number 1 overall pick, future Hall of Famer, Vezina Trophy winner last season, as recently as that is. And I mean, this guy can steal the games in the playoffs when we get there. I'm feeling pretty good again that we're starting to stack wins. So I think this is a very win-now move, but I think it's absolutely worth it. I'm glad that Billy G was able to find that middle ground with the Blackhawks, because it sounded like the Blackhawks were pretty persistent on first. He was only willing to give up a second, and they found a nice conditional value to it where it'll turn into a first. So we make the Western Conference Finals, and I'm totally okay with that. If we get that far, like I'll be jumping for joy, and that's totally worth it, because then you would have gotten past everybody in our division, I would think, unless you end up in some wild card scenario in the other division. But I hope that won't happen. But anyways, you get past Colorado, then you probably feel like you have a good chance of going beyond just that, but going all the way to the Cup and potentially winning it. So realistically, that'd be well worth it. So I think it's a very calculated move by Garen, and I think he just knows how to play this business and make the moves necessary to put our organization in the best spot, both in the near and long-term future, because we picked up a second from Dish and Jack McBain out there in Arizona.
Right.
So I think that's really nice, basically recouping that value back from trading our own second to Chicago that could turn into first.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great move because Bill Guerin's giving this current team a chance to really go for it here. I know they've struggled over the last month, but for the longest time, they were the second best team in the Western Conference behind Colorado Avalanche. So you bring in a guy like Fleury, and this is a goalie that's capable of stealing games for you. And especially as long as the defense plays okay in front of them, which is definitely a concern now, but they did trade for a defenseman, which we'll get into in a little bit here. Just having a goalie that could steal a game when your team's playing like crap. I mean, the Wild haven't gotten that goaltending all season from either of these guys. So yeah, it kind of hurts to give up on Kähkönen, but I mean, he's been up for, 3 years now, and it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but he hasn't really proven that he's capable of being a number 1 in the NHL. And I mean, he's definitely a serviceable backup. I mean, and he can kind of take over when goalies get injured. We've seen that the last 2 years when Cam Talbot's been out a significant amount of time, but I really appreciate Garen just going for it. And honestly, at this trade deadline, I'm not really upset with anything we've had to give up in order to receive what we've gotten back in a lot of these deals. I thought maybe a 3rd-round pick for Delorier was a little steep, but I mean, it's a 3rd-round pick in the NHL draft. You never know how that's going to turn out. So I'm excited about it, man. I'm happy that they're pushing for a win now type scenario rather than just, keep kicking the can down the road. And the cap situation is going to tighten up too. So if there's a year to go for it, really, it's right now.
Totally. Yeah. And even just within the last few days, I've kind of changed my tune on this because I wasn't really keen on the idea. But I mean, the more you think about it, and now that he's legitimately on the team and he's coming out in this opening press conference when he lands in St. Paul, being like, yeah, this feels like a place for me. I wouldn't have waived the no trade clause for just anybody. Like, came in here this past Saturday when the Blackhawks visited the Wild, and you're like, yeah, this feels like a winning environment. This feels like somewhere that, or a team that can go somewhere. So that's all you can. I mean, that's music to the ears of fans everywhere, and it's a fun move because it's a big time player. So I'm just really excited about this, and yeah, it's just one of the many lately in this state, in this town. So
yes,
it's worth really another thing I keep saying this lately, but it's another thing worth getting really excited about.
Yeah, and as we're recording this right now, the Vikings are possibly on the precipice of signing Zadarius Smith. Obviously, the Carlos Correa news, the Timberwolves are the hottest team in the NBA. I mean, there's so much crazy stuff going on with Minnesota sports right now. It's hard to even fathom, honestly. But yeah, I mean, one of the greatest goalies of all time. He's on the Minnesota Wild, whether it's for half a season, whether it's for next season as well. I'm just going to try and enjoy it because I absolutely trust Bill Garen with my life, man. I trust every move that guy does. I trust. Like I think he really has a good feel for what this team needs, and even trading for a guy like Nick Delorier from the Anaheim Ducks just to bring in a more physical presence, so Marcus Foligno doesn't feel like he's got to be the one to stand up and fight every single time. I mean, just small stuff like that where you're making an impact on the fourth line, but it also kind of has a ripple effect throughout the rest of your lineup as well. Let's get into some of these other moves as well. Obviously, Fleury's the highlight, but I mean, they made quite a few moves within the last week here. I mentioned Nick Delorier for a third-round pick. Kaapo Kähkönen got sent out to the San Jose Sharks along with a fifth-round pick, and in return, we got defenseman Jacob Middleton, who is another aggressive, rough-style defenseman. He's not super skilled by any means, but he had been playing with Brent Burns out there in San Jose. He had been playing with Carlson as well. So, like, he's played with some skilled defensemen, which kind of makes me wonder maybe they'll pair him with Spurgeon, keep Brodin and Dumba together, and then move a guy like Goligoski down to the third pairing, which could really benefit, I think, having Goligoski, especially as his play is trailed off here. Maybe move him down to the third defensive pairing, and then, Kulikov and Merrill kind of swapping in and out there in that last spot. But, yeah, you mentioned trading Jack McBain for a second-round pick. I mean, we got a second-round pick, which is a Vancouver pick, which will be a decent selection for a guy that literally said he didn't want to sign here. Like and he drafted him in the third round. So like we actually got better compensation out of the deal. Obviously it's a bummer your own draft pick doesn't want to sign here, but I certainly can't complain about the return we got on that. So I'm trying to think if I'm missing any other trades here.
Yeah, we already talked about a week ago the Tyson Jost and Nico Sturm swap, but that was in there. And then flipping Rask to the Kraken.
Yes, that's right. For future considerations, I don't even know what that means.
I don't know. But, get him out here.
Yeah, we don't need him at this stage. So, very active deadline for the Wild. What are your thoughts on some of these other moves? Just basically beefing up the back end of the roster.
Yeah, I like it. I think we're becoming more gritty and just in time for the playoffs. So I think that's good. I think you're going to need to be able to play a physical brand of hockey when you get to playoffs. That's the way it always ends up shaking out, especially when you're trying to slow down a good team. Like, let's say, for instance, if you end up in a matchup with Colorado, like you're going to need that. So I think these were just more of the right buttons to push for Bill Garen. So that's awesome. And then unloading some guys that we don't need in this organization. If McBain doesn't want to play here, get him out of here. Let's ship him off to Arizona. And then Victor Rask, another guy, we don't need him here. So get him out of here too. And I think I liked all these moves that Garen's made, whether they be small ones like the Rask thing or making a big splash like Fleury. Like I think he knows what he's doing. That gives me some much needed reassurance.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. So where do you stand on this team now? Are you more confident that they're able to maybe make a little bit of a run in the playoffs? Do you think there's still some weaknesses there that can be exploited that maybe would still give them trouble getting out of the first round? What are kind of your thoughts here? We're still in the thick of it in this division race between us, St. Louis, and Nashville to fight for those, top 2 or top 3 spots in the division, with Colorado obviously already having the top spot. So what are your thoughts on maybe how this changes the outlook for the Wild come playoff time?
Yeah, this should give us a great chance to get to that second place in the division, so we can we can host or have the home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs, which is huge when we can play as many games at the X as possible, just because that's what every team wants when it gets to this time of year. You want to play in front of your home fans because that's usually where you play your best hockey. So I think that's probably the next jump we want to make. And then if we can get to that point, I feel pretty good about our chances. I'm a little bit nervous of playing a team like St. Louis in the first round that maybe will play us. Like, for instance, we've had issues playing them and then playing teams like them that are just to a lesser talented extent, like for instance Winnipeg or something. Like we've struggled with Winnipeg this year, so that does concern me over the course of a series. But at the same time, adding Fleury is huge, because even if you don't bring your best game that night, if he's on, then you might only need to basically grind for a goal or two and you're going to win the game. So I think that's a huge upgrade for us, and just a guy you can really trust when it comes right down to it. So I think that's what I'd say at this point.
Yeah, and I think I saw a stat we're like 1-6-2 against the Blues, the Preds, the Stars. And I don't know if the Avs were included in that stat or not. Trying to think if that's reasonable enough games, but basically
Pretty,
all the teams that are around us or above us in this division, we've really struggled with this year, and I think a lot of it's just due to lack of physicality and lack of size.
yep. Now we got
Because
that.
we have the skill players between Kaprizov, Boldy, Fiala. I mean, Hartman's having a career season. That third line with Eriksson, Greenway, and Foligno is ultra talented just in terms of how they can control the puck. So
Yes.
talent-wise, I'm not really worried, but now I'm glad we have more grit, especially on the back end. Just kind of give us a little bit of best of both worlds, you know?
Yeah, and maybe keep guys like Foligno out of the penalty box a little bit more. I know he,
Yes.
especially early on in the season, definitely racked up the penalty minutes. So let's hope we can keep him out there because he's more than just an enforcer. Like he's actually a pretty skilled player. So I'd like to see him out there more often than not.
Yeah, no kidding. And one excellent quote I just saw from Bill Garen here in that pregame press conference introducing Fleury. They basically asked him like, "How's Talbot taking this?" And he basically explained, he talked to Talbot a couple days ago that he was probably going to do this. Talbot was very understanding. He's been a great teammate, and basically at the end of his quote, he said, "There's no time for petty BS." And I absolutely love that quote because that's the epitome of what Bill Garen is. He's a straight shooter.
Yep.
Don't BS with me. And just be a good team guy. And it's once again, it just all comes down to winning with him. And it's so refreshing to hear that because Bill Guerin is brutally honest, and you don't get that out of general managers in professional sports. So,
No, it's a different breed.
yeah, he's an absolute treat. And maybe it's because he was, a hockey player and a recent hockey player too. So, I mean, he's fresh out of the league. He's got good relationships, and
I think it's perfect for their head coach, Dean Evison, too.
Yes. Yeah. They both just know what it takes. And that's why I have so much confidence in this team. Even though they were in a little bit of a rut here, I think they're starting to find their way out of it. And if they can, come out and beat Vegas really good tonight, Marc-Andre Fleury sitting on the bench, obviously he won't be going against his old team, but he'll still be on the opposing bench. I think that'd be a huge step in the right direction for sure.
Yes, 100%. And yeah, hopefully this doesn't rattle Talbot too much. I know they're probably going to split time, I would say, fairly evenly down the stretch, probably. But when it comes to the playoffs, who knows? We might ride Fleury the whole time. Probably depends who's playing better at the end of the season, really. But
yeah, exactly. So that'll do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Definitely just some fun episodes lately with all the moves that these teams have been making. But please be sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a like as well. Help us reach more Minnesota Wild fans. Feel free to follow us on both Twitter and Instagram and leave your comments below. What are your thoughts now that we finally traded for Fleury? The trade deadline has passed and we've made all sorts of moves. How do you feel about the team moving forward? And do you have more confidence as we get closer to the playoffs? So until next time, thanks for watching.